My name is Margot Ellerby. I'm 30 years old. 5 weeks ago, I woke up in a hospital bed after emergency surgery, with no one in the room. No flowers, no cards, no family. Just the sound of a heart monitor and the fluorescent hum of the overhead lights. I reached for my phone on the bedside table. 3 texts from my mother, not asking how I was, not saying she was on her way. The first, "Hope everything went okay." The second, "Serena says hi from the airport." The third, "Can you Venmo me $40 for the pet sitter? We forgot to pay her before we left." My parents were in Turks and Caicos, with my sister, on a vacation they'd planned for months. A vacation they refused to postpone even when my doctor called them personally to say I was being rushed into emergency surgery for a ruptured ovarian cyst that was causing internal bleeding. My mother's exact words when the surgical coordinator called to ask for an emergency contact who could be present. "We're boarding in 20 minutes. Margot's tough. She'll be fine." She'll be fine. I was on an operating table with a surgeon trying to stop a hemorrhage, and my mother said I'd be fine because her flight had priority boarding. But what my parents didn't know was that my surgeon, Dr. Annika Lindstrom, had heard every word of that phone call. And what she did in the weeks that followed would force my family to confront a truth they'd spent 30 years avoiding. Before I tell you what Dr. Lindstrom wrote in that letter, please like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from and what time is it there? I love hearing from all of you. Now, let me take you back to the beginning. Growing up in Madison, Wisconsin, I learned early that my family had a center of gravity, and it wasn't me. It was Serena. My parents, Glenn and Valerie Ellerby, were comfortable upper middle class. Dad was an architect. Mom was a real estate agent who worked when she felt like it, which was about 3 days a week. They weren't struggling. There was always money. There just wasn't always money for me. Serena was 3 years younger, and from the moment she arrived, she reorganized the entire household around herself. She was louder, bolder, more demanding, and my parents interpreted every one of those qualities as strength. She was confident. She was spirited. She knew what she wanted. I was quiet. I read books. I got good grades without being asked. I cleaned my room, helped with dinner, never caused problems. In my family, that made me furniture. When I was 12, I broke my arm falling off my bike. Clean fracture, left radius. Mom drove me to the ER, sat with me through the x-ray, and then left to pick up Serena from a friend's house before the cast was even set. Dad was supposed to come get me when they were done. He forgot. I sat in the ER waiting room for 3 hours with a freshly casted arm until a nurse finally called my mother and said, "Someone needs to pick up your daughter." Mom sounded annoyed on the phone. "We're at Serena's recital rehearsal. Can you take an Uber?" I was 12. I didn't have an Uber account. The nurse drove me home herself. I told myself it was a mix-up. Everyone forgets things sometimes. At 17, I was hospitalized for severe pneumonia. 5 days in the pediatric ward. My parents visited once, day 2, for 40 minutes. They brought Serena, who complained the entire time that the hospital smelled weird, and asked when they could leave. On day 4, I asked Mom if she could bring me clean pajamas. She said she'd try. She never came back. A friend's mother brought me clothes and sat with me until I was discharged on day 5. My parents picked me up on discharge day. Mom's first words, "You look fine, see? We told you it wasn't that serious." 5 days of IV antibiotics, a chest x-ray that showed fluid in both lungs. But sure, not that serious. I told myself they just didn't understand medical stuff. They weren't trying to be cruel. At 22, I graduated from the University of Wisconsin with a degree in social work. I'd put myself through school with scholarships and 2 part-time jobs because my parents said they were saving for Serena's college fund and couldn't contribute to mine. Serena's college fund turned out to be $45,000. She used it for 2 years at a private university in Colorado before dropping out to find herself. She found herself in Bali for 3 months, funded by an additional $8,000 from my parents. My total parental contribution to my education? $0. My total student loan debt at graduation? $31,000. My graduation gift? A text from Mom that said, "Congrats, sweetie. Sorry we couldn't make it. Serena's moving back and we're helping her get settled." They missed my graduation to help my dropout sister unpack. But all of that was just the warm-up, because what happened 5 weeks ago made every previous slight look like a rounding error. I'd been having abdominal pain for about a week. Sharp, intermittent, getting worse. I'm a social worker, not a doctor, but I knew something was wrong. I went to urgent care on a Tuesday. They did an ultrasound and found a large ovarian cyst, 6 centimeters, and told me to follow up with my OBGYN. I called my mother that night, partly to tell her, partly because some part of me still hoped she'd care. "Mom, they found a cyst. It might need surgery." "Oh, honey, I'm sure it'll be fine. Listen, I need to tell you something exciting. We booked a trip to Turks and Caicos. The whole family. We leave next Thursday." The whole family? Well, me, Dad, and Serena. Serena's been so stressed with her new job, and we thought she could use a reset. A full week at an all-inclusive. It's going to be gorgeous. I waited. For the invitation. And of course you're coming too. For any indication that the whole family included me. It didn't come. "That sounds nice," I said. "Right? Serena found the resort. It's $3,200 per person, but Dad said she deserves it. She's been working so hard." Serena had started a part-time job at a boutique 3 months earlier. She worked 20 hours a week. My parents were spending $9,600 on a vacation to reward her for it. I'd been working full-time in Child Protective Services for 4 years, handling caseloads that kept me up at night, visiting homes that broke my heart, writing reports that sometimes saved children's lives. Nobody had ever offered me a vacation. "Anyway," Mom continued, "I hope the cyst thing works out. Keep us posted." She hung up before I could respond. 4 days later, at 2 in the morning, the cyst ruptured. The pain was blinding. I'd never felt anything like it. A white-hot knife twisting inside my abdomen. I managed to call 911 from my bathroom floor. The paramedics found me curled up, barely conscious, blood pressure dropping. At the hospital, the ER doctor was blunt. "You have a ruptured ovarian cyst with significant internal bleeding. We're prepping you for emergency surgery. Is there someone we should call?" I gave them my parents' number. It was the only family I had in my contacts. The surgical coordinator called my mother at 5:47 a.m. I know the exact time because it's in my medical records. She explained the situation. Emergency surgery, internal hemorrhage, patient needs a family member present for consent and post-operative decisions. My mother's response, captured in the coordinator's notes: "We're at the airport. Our flight board's in 20 minutes. Margot is tough. She'll be fine. Can't someone else handle it?" The coordinator asked if there was anyone else to call. My mother gave her my neighbor's number, a woman named Deborah whom I'd spoken to maybe 6 times in 2 years. Deborah, to her eternal credit, came. She sat in the waiting room for 4 hours while Dr. Annika Lindstrom operated on me. She signed the consent forms as an emergency proxy. She was there when I woke up. My parents were 30,000 feet over the Atlantic, ordering mimosas. The surgery took 3.5 hours. The cyst had ruptured and caused hemorrhaging that required a transfusion. Dr. Lindstrom saved my ovary, but barely. She told me later that another 30 minutes of delay and I would have lost it entirely, along with a significant amount of blood. When I woke up in recovery, Deborah was sitting in the chair next to my bed, holding a cup of ice chips. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Where are my parents?" She hesitated. "They're on their trip. Your mom said they'd call when they landed." They called 8 hours later. From the resort. I could hear steel drums in the background. "Margot, how'd it go? The coordinator said everything went smoothly." "I had emergency surgery, Mom. I needed a blood transfusion. My neighbor signed my consent forms because you were on an airplane. Well, we didn't know it would be that serious. You said it was just a cyst. I said it might need surgery. It ruptured. I was hemorrhaging. Pause. Steel drums. Well, you're okay now, right? That's what matters. Serena sends her love. The resort is beautiful, you should see the water. I hung up. I lay in that hospital bed, alone except for Deborah, and cried until my stitches ached. But I wasn't the only one in that hospital who was paying attention. Dr. Lindstrom checked on me every day of my 3-day stay. She was precise, professional, and warm, a combination I wasn't used to from authority figures. On day 2, she sat on the edge of my bed and asked a question that caught me off guard. Margot, does your family have a history of not showing up for your medical emergencies? I almost lied. Almost said no, this was unusual, they were just busy. But something about the way she asked, direct, unjudging, like she already knew the answer, made me tell the truth. I told her about the broken arm at 12, the pneumonia at 17, the graduation they missed, the vacation they didn't invite me on, the $9,600 trip for Serena that took priority over my surgery. Dr. Lindstrom listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, I heard your mother on the phone with my coordinator. I was in the pre-op area reviewing your chart. She said you were tough and you'd be fine. That sounds like her. You almost lost an ovary. You needed a blood transfusion. Tough has nothing to do with it. She paused. I'm going to write your parents a letter. Dr. Lindstrom, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I'm choosing to. The same way your mother chose not to be here. She discharged me on day 3. Deborah drove me home. My apartment was exactly as I'd left it. Dishes in the sink from the dinner I never finished. A half-read book on the couch. A life interrupted by a medical emergency that my family had treated like an inconvenience. I spent the next week recovering alone. I ordered groceries through an app. I changed my own surgical dressings. My coworker, Amanda, stopped by twice with soup and sat with me while I watched TV and tried not to cry. My parents posted 17 photos from Turks and Caicos during my recovery week. Serena in a bikini on the beach, Mom with a cocktail at sunset, Dad snorkeling, family dinner at the resort restaurant. All 3 of them smiling. Not one of them called me during that week. Not once. Amanda was the one who finally said what I couldn't. She was sitting on my couch, spooning chicken noodle soup into a bowl when she looked at me and said, Margot, you almost died on a table, and they went to the beach. You need to stop calling that family. They're my parents, Amanda. Parents show up. These people didn't. She was right. I knew she was right. But knowing it and accepting it are 2 different surgeries, and I wasn't sure I was ready for both. Then Dr. Lindstrom's letter arrived. Not to me, to my parents. She sent it to their home address, which she'd gotten from my emergency contact form. She also sent me a copy with a note attached. You deserve to know what I said on your behalf. The letter was 2 pages, single-spaced, on Augusta Medical Center letterhead. I read it 4 times. It began, Dear Mr. and Mrs. Ellerby, I am writing to you as the surgeon who operated on your daughter Margot on the morning of October 7th. I am writing not in my capacity as her physician, but as a human being who witnessed something deeply troubling. She described the surgery in clinical detail. The ruptured cyst, the hemorrhaging, the transfusion, the 3.5 hours on the table, the fact that another 30 minutes could have resulted in permanent organ loss. Then she wrote, When my coordinator contacted you prior to surgery, she was told that Margot was tough and would be fine. Your daughter was not fine. She was in a life-threatening medical emergency. The consent forms for her surgery were signed by a neighbor she barely knows because no family member was available or willing to be present. She continued, In my 23 years of surgical practice, I have never encountered a situation in which a patient's parents, when notified of an emergency surgery, chose to board a vacation flight instead. I have seen poverty prevent families from being present. I have seen distance and circumstance create barriers. But I have never seen a family choose leisure over their child's emergency and frame it as acceptable because their child is tough. The final paragraph. Margot recovered well, physically, but the wound your absence created is not one I can suture. I urge you, as someone who spent 4 hours ensuring your daughter survived, to consider what your priorities communicated to her, not just on October 7th, but throughout her life. Toughness is not consent to be abandoned. My parents got that letter on a Wednesday. I know because my father called me Thursday morning. He was crying. In 30 years, I had never heard my father cry. Margot, I read the letter. I read it twice. I don't know what to say. Is Mom there? She's in the other room. She's been quiet since yesterday. She read it and went to bed. What did Serena say? Pause. Serena doesn't know about the letter. She should. I know. 2 days later, my mother called. Her voice was different, smaller, stripped of the breezy confidence she usually wore like perfume. I got Dr. Lindstrom's letter. I know, she sent me a copy. Long silence, then. Was it really that serious? The surgery? Mom, I had a blood transfusion. My neighbor signed my consent forms. You were at the airport buying magazines. We thought, you were exaggerating. You've always been so capable, Margot. We just assumed. You assumed I didn't need you because I never complained. But I never complained because complaining never worked. You would have chosen Serena's vacation anyway. She didn't deny it. That was the most honest thing my mother had ever done, not deny it. The doctor's letter said she's never seen parents choose a vacation over surgery. She hasn't. She told me. Another silence. Then my mother said something I will carry for the rest of my life. I don't know when I started treating you like you didn't need a mother, but I'm sorry that I did. It wasn't enough, not for 30 years. But it was the first true sentence she'd ever said to me, and I let it land. My parents came to see me the following weekend. First visit since the surgery, 3 weeks after the fact. Mom brought flowers, lilies, which are my favorite, and she somehow remembered even though I wouldn't have guessed she knew. Dad brought the letter. He'd highlighted parts of it. He sat at my kitchen table and said, I highlighted the parts that hurt the most. All of them were true. We talked for 2 hours. Not the surface-level weather and Serena conversations I was used to. Real talking. I told them about the broken arm and the nurse who drove me home. I told them about the pneumonia and the friend's mother who brought me clothes. I told them about the graduation text, the $0 college contribution, the $9,600 vacation. Mom cried. Dad cried. I stayed dry-eyed, not because I wasn't moved, but because I'd already done my crying, alone, in a hospital bed, with steel drums playing in the background of a phone call. We gave Serena $45,000 for college and she dropped out, Dad said quietly. We gave you nothing and you built a career that saves children. That's not something I'm proud of, Margot. That's something I failed at. You didn't fail at raising me, Dad. You failed at seeing me. He nodded. Same thing. Serena called me a week later. She'd been told about the letter, the surgery, the whole thing. Margot, I didn't know. About the surgery, I mean. Mom just said you had a minor procedure. It wasn't minor, Serena. I know that now. I'm sorry I didn't check on you. You were on vacation. I know. Pause. I'm starting to realize that a lot of things I thought were normal weren't. It wasn't a full reckoning, but it was a crack in the wall, and sometimes that's where the light gets in. Today, I'm 5 weeks post-surgery. The scar is healing. My blood work is back to normal. Dr. Lindstrom cleared me for full activity at my last follow-up. When I thanked her, she said, "Don't thank me for the surgery. Thank me for the letter. That's the one that's going to heal you." She was right. My parents and I are in the early stages of something I don't have a word for yet. It's not reconciliation. It's too new for that. It's not forgiveness. I haven't gotten there and I won't rush it. It's more like excavation, digging through 30 years of sediment to find out where the foundation cracked. Mom sends a text every morning now. Just, "Good morning, Margot." Nothing more. But she sends it every single day, and she has not missed one. Dad set up a savings account in my name, deposited $5,000. "It's not $45,000, he said, "but it's a start." Serena and I talk occasionally, short conversations. She's starting therapy, which surprised me. She told me last week, "I think I was the favorite and I think it messed me up too, just differently." I still have the letter. It's in my nightstand drawer, next to the discharge papers and the ice chip cup Deborah left behind. Sometimes I read the last line before bed. Toughness is not consent to be abandoned. If you're watching this and you're the tough one in your family, the one who handles everything, the one nobody worries about, the one who gets through it alone because you've always gotten through it alone, I need you to hear something. You are not tough because you don't need people. You are tough because you survived not having them. And you deserve someone who shows up. Not because you asked, because you matter. You don't have to almost die on a table for someone to finally see you. But if that's what it took for my family, then I'm grateful for the doctor who made sure they couldn't look away. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Have you ever had a stranger show you more care than your own family? What did that teach you about the people you deserve in your life? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, remember, toughness is not consent to be abandoned, and you are so much more than what you survived.